Alright, hello fellow INT instructors. This video is to help you with your test out setup. Sometimes it's not clear on the procedure, so I'm going to go through what I do. There may be better ways, and you're welcome to add to it or make your own video, but I'm just going to go over some of the things that I do. So first, um, I'm in a course that has lab sim or test out, right? Some of the things are done behind the scene by test out. For example, the synchronization from Moodle course room to my test out is usually complete. So when I click this launch, it automatically launches, right? So down here, when I click launch, LabSim does launch. That's done behind the scenes. I normally don't have much to do with that. If I have a problem and it doesn't launch, then what I can do is I can contact support. This gentleman right here, Seth Palmer, he's a good technical guy for support for that. So I'll just leave that up for a couple of seconds there. You could always contact him or open your own support case. But this gentleman here has helped me before, and he's pretty smart with test out. Okay, so in test out here, just before I go into setup of the course, there's some arrows here. So sometimes the students launch test out and it goes directly to work, and they're like, what am I supposed to do? How do I start the lab? I don't understand the steps. If you click back and forth, you can browse the course, and it talks about some of the things I'm training before you even get to that lab sim, right? So I've had students say, there's no directions or anything. It just goes right to a lab. Well, just click these arrows, right, and they could learn about some of the topics before that simulation even begins. So just tell them to click the arrows through to get some additional training um, for that particular lab that they're launching. But to set up your course, I click on the home key here. I click continue. And what I do is I add my course. This used to be done by test out in the past, but it's no longer done. So what I do is I try to keep the same naming convention that Miller-Motte likes. Let's say if I'm setting up a late summer course, I'll generally copy a course here and just rename it. So I've just copied that. I'm going to go back. I'm going to add my course, and I can just paste that naming convention and change the semester time. So if it's winter, I could change it to winter, but I generally try to keep that. Sorry about that. Let's go back. I generally try to keep that same naming convention that Miller-Motte has done in the past, right? The assigned teacher should be yourself. For the LabSim product, what I usually do is to confirm in my course, there should be a syllabus, and that syllabus should have what LabSim PC is required, or when you launch the thing. So here it's not in there. So when I've launched the test out application, I'll launch another one here. It also tells you here which LabSim you should use, right? 4.2.1. So when I set up my course, I like to try to put the same version, right? So I'm doing Linux 4.2.1 right here, right? So I'll associate that to the course. All right, so let's make this an example here. I'm just going to call this example. So then I click done. The course is going to be saved in my course room here, right, in my classes. So then what I do is I click on that course, and I enroll the students that are in it. I change the view to all students, right? Because sometimes I teach McCann students and sometimes I teach, different ones, so I just don't leave it at Miller-Motte. And what I do is I go through my grade book, right? So I go back to my course. I'll go to my grade book. Sorry about that. Trying to, I think there. I'll go back to my grade book here, and I'll see the students that are associated with the course. And then I go back to test out and I add those students, right, by just doing a search. So then I click the plus and it links him to the class. I've come across where they've had 2 accounts and I just link them both because I'm unsure which one. Test out can merge those accounts, so you can talk to the student and to that technical support gentleman and have them merge that account when they come across 2 accounts like that. Once I get the students added, I could see them in the course, and I'll give you an example of a course that I'm teaching where the students are in there and enrolled, right? And here was that gentleman that had the 2 accounts, and you could see this one is not actually registered, so that's not syncing. Same as this gentleman here. So that's the setup of the course. It's pretty simple. So now, what can I do in the course? Well, test out is very, very secure. So they don't let you modify or pull down grades or delete a test out issue. So you'll have to rely on them. I can tell you, you could click on this reports and you could run reports for the grade book. You could do some of these items here, but that's generally it. You can't do too much of anything. The good news is that the students have more than one chance, so if they do get a bad grade, they can always go back and redo the test out. There's no limitation on how many they can do, but for certain you cannot take action in test out as an instructor. We just don't have that privilege. So now when your grades come into the class, they are automatically synced. Okay, so there isn't anything that you have to do to get test out to Moodle. It's automatic. Now what happens is sometimes the student's grades are, the student will contact you and say, hey, I did something in test out. It is not displaying. What can I do? So I'm going to show you that in just a minute here. When the student launches a lab sim from the course room, let's say they have all these to do for homework this week. So when they go here and they launch their lab sim and they start their lab and they do their lab, when they're complete with their lab, they have to submit the score. Sometimes the students submit the score in their lab sim and then they'll click next and go to the next lab sim and they'll complete it and submit the score. Because they didn't access that next lab sim through the course room link, it does not submit. So let's say they do 6.3.4 and then in lab sim they continue to 6.3.5. Since they didn't click this link to 6.3.5, then the grade doesn't synchronize. It does store it, but it does not synchronize. So all they have to do is exit out of the test out where they've completed that lab sim, launch it by the link, and click the submit button, and then the grades will sync. That's happened often. So anytime your students say their grade has not synced, have them just simply click the link in the classroom to that specific grade and press the submit button, and then it should sync. In the grade book, be sure that you do not zero out your lab sims or your test out. If you do zero those out, then they cannot sync later on. So if they do it late or do it after the assignment date, you zeroed it out for week 1, but they're in week 2 and they've done that, you're going to have to then take manual action to remove the zero to then resync it. Sometimes that breaks it. So we do not have to zero out test out. That can be left blank until the end of the course when you then zero it out. The only other thing I want to discuss is some of the courses the students have to take a certification, like 1112 or 1151. So what you would do in this case is, and it's not linked to the grades, they just have to take it. So what you do in this case is you go to certifications, and let's say you have a class that requires to take one of the certifications, for example 1151 in week 3 or 1112 in week 3. Students have to take this Testout Pro PC Pro certification, which is excellent. I recommend that you take it. You can take it one time for free. When you take it and understand it, then you could help your students through it. So I recommend that you do take it. I've taken them and they're very good. So what you do is you click schedule exam. This is scheduling this exam for your students, right? You'll have a list of students that are unscheduled. You'll click them, you'll click schedule, and you'll click a time frame. And then once they're scheduled, you'll have a list of students that are scheduled to take the exam or the certification. Whatever time that you schedule them for will be listed here, right? So I've scheduled them to take it through the whole course, and I give them an announcement in the beginning to say, you can take your PC Pro certification at any time. I generally give instructions on how to take it, but it is in the FAQ, and they just go through their lab sim and they launch it, and they have a certifications tab similar to this where they can just take that exam. I can go more into that in another video, but that's pretty much all you have to do with lab sim test setup, and any other issues within Testout, you don't really have too much permissions. You'll have to contact this resource, who's a great gentleman. He can help you out. All right, thanks.